Okay, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Powwow tour live on this webinar. We have lots of attendees jumping on, so we're going to give everybody a few minutes. Welcome, Edward and Cindy. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Shelley. We're quite excited. There's 39 registered, and we are also doing this as a Facebook Live post as well. So hopefully we'll have lots of people watching us this afternoon. I think the cold weather is working to our advantage today. So welcome everybody. We're excited. This is unfortunately the last day that Powwow Ohcîwin The Origins is going to be up at the MAG, but I will tell you a little bit more about where you will be able to see it in the near future. Hello, everyone. Hello, David, Cindy, Agnes, Anne. Welcome. We still got a few more people rolling in, so we'll give them a few minutes. Hello, everybody. Make sure you got your earphones or headphones on and get comfortable. We've got Patrick and Marrisa Mitsuing in the galleries. They are going to be doing the filming of themselves and touring and taking close-ups of the Regalia while they're telling their stories. So we anticipate the talk to probably be about an hour, and then we'll have the Q&A after, but I will get those details in a minute. We're still waiting for people to log in. I'll give them one more minute. We've got, I think, 22 people on already. Okay, well, I think I will begin and other people can just join on. Welcome, I'm Lynn LaCour, the Education Coordinator with the Red Deer Museum and Art Gallery. And we are so excited to be hosting another Curators Talk with Patrick and Marrisa Mitsuing, the curators and creators of the Powwow Ohcîwin's The Origin exhibit. Ohcîwin means the origin stories, and they are going to tell their stories about powwow, the history of powwow, their own personal stories, and the stories of the 7 regalia that are on exhibit in the museum currently. I want to first start off by acknowledging that we are sitting on Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 land. Treaty 6 is north of the Red Deer River and Treaty 7 is south of the Red Deer River. We respectfully acknowledge all of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who have walked this land before us. Now, we have had this exhibit up for a while now. It's taken us probably over a year to work with Patrick and Marrisa to create this fantastic opportunity to share with you today. This powwow exhibit is really on the history of powwows. As you are probably aware, a powwow is an Indigenous celebration of life. Traditional powwows have come with teachings. It's a ceremony. There's a feast. Contemporary powwows also have all those same elements, but they also have a competition for the dancers and prizes. So the 7 dances that are on exhibit today with the regalia are the 7 main dances, and Patrick and Marrisa will tell you all about this. This exhibit, we have designed it so that it's a touring exhibit. So after it comes down at the MAG next week, it is going to be sent to Wetaskiwin to their Heritage Museum, and it's going to be up on display from May 22nd to September 11th this year. So you will have an opportunity, we hope, to go to Wetaskiwin and see the exhibit there if you haven't already seen it in the MAG. And after that, it will be touring to other locations, and we will post those on our website. So first of all, I want to introduce Patrick and Marrisa Mitsuing. Patrick is originally Makwa Sejican First Nation from Loon Lake, Saskatchewan. He is a world-class powwow dancer, powwow champion dancer. Patrick and Marrisa are both owners and operators of Powwow Times. Marrisa Mitsuing is Cree from Saltu First Nations in northern Saskatchewan. They both live in Sylvan Lake with their 4 children who also do powwow dancing. They both teach them the Cree language and their traditions. She has done the beadwork on the moccasins, aprons, on the men's fancy dance regalia, and also on the women's jingle dress. She will point those out in detail. She teaches bead works, and they also run the Red Deer Aboriginal Dance Troupe. Patrick is also First Nations coordinator with the Chinooks Edge School. So these people are very, very busy. We are blessed to have them in our community and to share their teachings, their knowledge, their talents, their skills, and on top of it, they're fantastic storytellers. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and when we're done, please type your questions in the Q&A below, and we will answer them at the end. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. On to you, Patrick and Marrisa.
Thanks, everybody. We're so happy to be with you here today. And the exhibit is going to have a different home. And we're just so thankful to have been able to experience the last 6 months with our partners here, and then even the year before that with all the artists that were a part of this. So we're so thankful. Dansa, Marrisa Moccasin, Sigasam, Soto First Nation, Uchinia. Thank you all for giving me your time today. I hope that we add value to your day and that you enjoy yourselves. And I cannot wait to show you Ohcîwin.
Hello, everybody. Dansa Patrick Mitsuing, Nixigasan, Mako Segeganan, Ochinia, Egua, Giapsi Snihio Sigasan, and the Naskaman Eitomega, Babisquian, Nuch. And my mom always told me, introduce yourself in your language, especially if you're maybe talking to some new people, people who might not know the language. They're going to hear it and realize just from the sound that, hey, might be a story there. Where are you from? Where does that language come from? And that is part of my identity, is my language. And a lot of my teachings are embedded in that language. And sometimes the English language doesn't do what we're trying to say justice. And like when I said, my name is, and if I were to translate that, from Cree to English, that word we use for describing who you are is Nitsigasan. And I could say, hey, Patrick Mitsuing Nitsigasan, I'm letting you know what my name is, right? That's the translation from Cree to English. But if I really dig into that word, Nitsigasan, it means that umbilical cord when you're a baby and it's attached to your mother, that connection you have with your mother. See how that's a little more deeper meaning than, hey, my name is. And what I'm saying is this umbilical cord that's connected to my mother, that's where I'm from. That's who I am. That is my identity. That is my culture. That is my, it gives me a path to find out who I am. And so, a lot of times when we see someone who might be feeling a little lost and feeling like they don't know who they are, we say they're trying to find their belly button, their netsigasan of who they are. And so this has been a journey for us, this getting this exhibit up and getting it running and getting it here for everyone to see, and also to do it virtually, is our path in finding out our belly button and our path of finding out who we are as Indigenous people. I'm wearing this shirt right now. It says, Think Indigenous. And my brother, Chris Scribe, he's the creator of Think Indigenous. He has a big conference that goes on every year, and it's coming up in March. They're going to do it virtually. But the way you say Think Indigenous in Cree is Nihio Mamtanichikani Bachita. It's a way to think Indigenous. And so it is really cool that Red Deer Museum came here and they thought Indigenous. They're like, how can we make our space Indigenous? And so they gave us a space to actually, curate a project for this museum itself, to give this space indigenous identity, which is really cool. And now, you know, I teach a lot and I consult in schools and I show them how to make their buildings and their spaces indigenous. And today you are, you know, creating your little space of your world to bring in a little bit of indigenousness inside of your life. And I appreciate that. Me and my wife, we always say we appreciate everyone's time, because you could be anywhere in the world right now. And you know, you decided to spend an hour with us. So we're going to really take that hour and not waste it and give you the best love that we could. To give love, we say, "Gisagitin," you know, we're giving love. Gisagitin now, wow, means I love you all. And so today we're going to operate under that energy to give you guys a little bit of us, a little bit of our love and our energy for you. So Lynn, I just got a 20% battery notification on here, so I know you guys charged this battery up, but I'm gonna start talking and let you guys know a little bit of how this exhibit came to be, and then we're gonna go and teach you a little bit about the 7 dance styles that we have represented here today. And then also we're going to leave a little space for questions, and that way we can answer some of those questions that you might have after this presentation. So with that, you know, Marrisa and I, we kind of did everything backwards. In the Lakota tribes, they have a thing called the Hioka, and that's doing everything backwards. And I feel like Marrisa and I, we kind of went on that path of the Hioka. We met each other and we started a family right away. And we kind of went through this phase of, do we even like each other, right after we started a family? And we went through ups and downs, struggling, trying to figure out who we are. And then eventually, after we built a family and we got to know each other, we got married. And so you could see how that was all backwards of what is kind of portrayed in movies and portrayed in life. You know, you're supposed to date first, then get married, then you get to know each other or whatever, and then you start a family, right? Ours was totally opposite. And because of that, we found a lot of struggles in not only finding out, do we love each other? Can we create a relationship with each other? But also looking into the mirror and saying, can we love ourselves? And can we create a relationship with ourselves? And the reason why it was so problematic was because we had no reference on what a healthy family looked like. We had no reference on what a healthy relationship looked like, and also what a good, solid male figure looked like in my life. And also for Marrisa, what does a good, solid woman look like in her life?
And I think on both sides too, both having a solid woman and a solid man in your life. And I think that in our generation, we didn't have too many people to look up to, like in different spaces, like in fashion or sports. You know, there wasn't too many options for Indigenous youth when we were young.
And so, you know, the big reasons for us not having healthy people to look at was, it took a while for us to even understand that. A while ago, the TRC Act came out, this Truth and Reconciliation Act, and we were like, what is that, right? And I went to high school, I went to university, and I never learned about residential schools or anything like that. And I got A+, 90% in Native Studies, and I took Native Studies in the University of Saskatchewan, and I never learned about that stuff until the TRC came out, and we learned, hey, you know what? Our people got taken when they were kids, and they were, these families got disrupted. And is that a reason why we don't speak our language, right? Is that a reason why we don't know our culture? And we really dug into that. And we found out that Marrisa's parents were both residential school survivors. And we had no clue that, you know, her parents went to residential schools. And I had no clue why my mom left, my dad left when I was 4, and my mom left shortly afterwards. Why did I live with aunties and uncles and get moved around a lot? And then why, when we started our family, why were we struggling so much with our emotions, with who we are, with just this confusion of our identity? And then it all started to make sense. You know, when the TRC came out, the truth started coming out, and then to figure out this reconciliation process and our self-healing. And that in itself was a journey. And so when Marrisa and I decided, hey, we're going to take a journey to find our belly buttons, that Nitsigasan, and we're going to do it with this Nihio Mamte Nichikane Bachita, this indigenous way of thinking. We decided, instead of going to therapy and talking with somebody, you know, about our problems, that we decided to go our cultural way. And we went through this route of powwow. And so we would pack up our family, just like, you know, people might pack up families to go to hockey games or to go on the rodeo trail. You know, maybe people go to fairs and they go to festivals, music festivals, things like that. We decided, let's take our family, let's pack them up, and let's go on the powwow trail. And the very cool thing about the powwow trail is you're going to find a lot of elders there. You're going to find a lot of people speaking their language there. You're going to see the drums, and you're going to hear the drums, and you're going to see the dancing and witness the dancing, and you're going to get some type of feeling when you're around that area. And that turned out to be somewhat of a university to us. A university, a way of learning about who we are, a way of connecting with our belly buttons to figure out, this is where I come from. These are my people. This is my language. This is my dancing, you know, and really finally have like a missing piece of a puzzle to our life. And then this whole process of where we went on this journey helped us to figure out healing, helped us to figure out who we are, helped us to raise our kids in a healthier way. I asked my brother one time, hey brother, Chris Scribe, what does decolonization mean for a family like us who is living in an urban environment? And he said, hey, that's easy, brother. All you got to do is make sure your kids have a greater chance of being indigenous than you had growing up, than your parents had growing up. And so me and Marrisa growing up, we weren't really exposed to our language to learn it. We weren't really exposed to our culture as much as we should have. But now our kids, as they're growing up, they're surrounded by it. Our house is fully indigenized. If you walk in, you're going to smell the sage. You're going to smell the sweetgrass. You're going to see the indigenous paintings on the wall. You know, we just acquired a teepee, so that teepee is going to be up in the yard. And our powwow outfits are around our house. You could hear the powwow music playing. It's very indigenous when you walk in our house. And so we decolonize our little space, our little area. And then in the summer, we're going to round dances. We're going to powwows. We're going to sweat lodge. We're going to a Sundance ceremony. And so our kids are being exposed to being indigenous more than we had grown up. So we're able to decolonize a little bit to teach them that nihio mamtinichikani bachita, that indigenous way of thinking, but also, you know, for them to find their nitsigas and who they are and where they come from. And so from that, we started to teach, because we started learning so much. We started sitting with elders, and we started to, you know, learn from knowledge keepers, and we started learning about all these dances and powwows. You know, what is the women's traditional? How did that start out? What is men's traditional? What is men's grass? And you know, we got to sit down with all these people and learn the stories. And then with that, we started going into schools, organizations, and we started talking and sharing our culture with so many people, and it was wonderful. And then one day we're on Facebook, and we seen this call for submissions from the museum here in Red Deer, and said, hey, we are looking for submissions. Give us your ideas. And Marrisa and I had this great idea that maybe we could do an exhibit of all this knowledge that we have, but also all this knowledge and people that we know that could share this knowledge. All these artists that maybe could create, you know, regalia and show people the beautiful art that indigenous people could have and share with the world. And so we wrote out a submission and we sent it in, and we didn't hear nothing. So we were like, I don't know, maybe they don't want to do it. Maybe who knows? And we kind of just put it out aside, and we went on the powwow trail. We went dancing, and it was wonderful. We came back a year later. I get a phone call saying, hey, it's the Red Deer Museum. We'd like if you would come in and maybe we talk about your project. And I said, oh, hey, I think they want to do our project. And Marrisa and I we were hugging, and we were jumping up and down. And then we came into the museum, and we talked about it. And they said, hey, we'd like to do your project. We just let it sit for a while because we didn't know, you know, in our minds how we could pull this off. And so we all came together as a team, and we worked really hard with the museum, and then we got the go ahead to make this happen. And so what we did, we connected with all these artists, different artists from all over North America, because each artist had a specific skill. Maybe someone knew how to do beadwork really good. Maybe someone knew how to make roaches really good. And then we contacted them and said, hey, we have this project. Would you want to be a part of it? And, you know, some people said yes, some people said no. And then we finally had a good group of people to come together and to create the exhibit that we're going to walk you through today. And it was a labor of love, a lot of people involved, a lot of different artists involved, but we were able to pull it off. Are we switching this, or what's happening?
No, we can wait. We can wait.
All right. So, you know, with that, you know, we're going to welcome you to our exhibit here at the Red Deer Museum and Art Gallery. We're going to walk you through as if we're giving you a personal tour. This is your VIP treatment, and I'm so thankful that you're here today to be with us. So with that, you know, Powwow, when we first started Powwow, it was more of a celebration. So I'm going to wait to let Marrisa turn that around.
All right.
Good?
Yeah.
So before Powwow, you know, we've always celebrated with song and dance. You know, the music was always a part of our tribes, and it doesn't matter what tribe you're talking about. They had some sort of way of celebrating, had some sort of way of music, and not just indigenous cultures. You can go into any type of culture and you're going to realize that they have their songs, they have their dances as well. Because we live in North America, these songs, these dances are rooted in our lands. There's one thing that I teach when I'm in schools, because they were like, why do we have to learn indigenous stuff? Why do we have to learn indigenous knowledge, right? Well, one thing is, anyone who comes to Canada, whether it's from 1492 and keep coming on, right? If you're French, if you're German, if you're Chinese, if you came here and you absolutely lost your culture, you lost your language, you lost your songs, one thing that a person could do who immigrated to these lands, they could always fly back to their country where their heritage and everything is embedded, right? And like an Irish person could go to Ireland and learn their songs again. They can learn their language again. They can learn where they come from. The thing about here in North America, our indigenous people, if we lost our language, if we lost our songs, our drumming, our culture, there's nowhere we could go but right here. Our culture and everything is embedded in this land. So these songs, these dances that we're sharing with you here today, they come from the land that is right here in Canada, in the United States. So it's important for us to keep these cultures alive. So with that, back in the day, you know, we would celebrate, we'd go for hunts, we'd go on to wars, we'd count coup, we would steal horses from enemy tribes, we'd steal medicine from other medicine pouches, and we'd do all kinds of things. And for a man, when you do these things, it gives you, you know, some notoriety, it gives you some acts of bravery, and you get celebrated in your community when you do these acts of bravery. And you know, sometimes it would award you the nicest horse in the tribe. Sometimes it would award you the nicest moccasins or nicest lodge teepee, or it would award you, you know, people would cheer you on. And they would celebrate when they came back, when they did these acts of bravery. They'd celebrate with song and dance, and these warriors would dance and they would tell their story through the dance. And one of those dances that evolved from that was the men's traditional dance. So this is the men's traditional dance here. And basically, these guys are our storytellers. So whenever you go to a powwow and you watch these guys dance, they're telling a story. And you'll see, because they hold weapons in their hands and they have fans and they're sneaking up on their enemy, and they'll show you through that dance. So take a look. You'll see that their dance is, you know, they adorn some breastplates here that would protect them from any flying arrows. They're holding weapons that they would make from nature or from animals. And they would have these chaps that they would wear, these pants, leather pants. And at a powwow, what makes them very unique, that you would find out who is a traditional dancer at a powwow, it would be from the big, nice bustle that they wore, right? And they said a lot of these warriors who wore the eagle feathers and the hawk feathers, these eagle feathers were, you know, basically they were earned They were earned from being brave in the battlefield. They'd be earned from doing acts of bravery, from counting coup, that the tribes would award them with eagle feathers, and they wear them proudly because they were well earned. And so when you're at a powwow, here's a dancer. So they would be dancing, and they would never just dance straight towards you, right? Because the enemy will see you. So what they'd have to do is they would have to go in a serpentine manner, right? And they dance low because they gotta hide under the brushes, under the trees. And they have songs, I feel like it's a little close to my face. They have songs that like they're gonna sneak up. So they go down and they would look and they would reenact a story. So basically when you watch them, they would be telling a story through their dance. So it's a really cool dance. A lot of my friends dance the men's traditional dance, and it's really, really cool to watch. And it's one of the oldest dances that we have in the Powwow Trail. Another old dance that we have is our women's traditional. So take a look at that. And one cool thing about the women's traditional is, you know, this is kind of very similar to the clothing they would wear, you know, back in the day. They would wear these, you know, either moose hide or deer hide, and they would be smoked, and they would smell really good, and they would decorate them with quill work and, you know, different types of beadwork, and different tribes would design them based on where they're from. So the Métis and the Cree, they use a lot of floral work. So you're gonna see a lot of floral work here. And another thing that they had is this beautiful quill work. So these are from porcupine quills that are embedded in this, and they're folded and they're flattened. And originally they would get all these colors from nature. So they would dye them with different plants from nature to get all these different colors.
One thing that I loved about the process of creating this and getting it together was that me on my own healing journey, learning about these dances, like the women who keeps the home, and like the other ones, and their meaning, the healing dance or the fancy, that I learned so much about being a woman, and this women's trad in particular. Women's trad in particular, I really resonated with, just as a mom, and the smell of these things and how these were created back in the day by women, and this was a woman's job. It really just helped me with where I was at that point in my life.
Sorry. And then the women's traditional, you know, back in the day, or even nowadays, they have these fringes and they'll go all the way to the ground. And usually these fringes, this is kind of more of an old style look to it, but they'd have these fringes all the way to the ground, and it represent their connection with the earth. And the cool thing I love about women's traditional, the one story that really tells, you know, the role of this is, if you were at a powwow during the grand entry, all these women traditional dancers will be all on the outside of the circle while all the dancers are in the inside. You know what that tells you just is that the women are looking out for you. The women are looking out at the community to make sure everything is in order, to make sure everything is right. And they're almost like protecting everyone through observation, making sure everything is good. And the women would always kind of dictate, you know, when the teepee was set up, if it was set up right, then the men would have to, you know, change it around to make sure that it was good. And another thing about the woman is we call them isquil in our language. And if you ever say the word fire, iskatil, you know, we're saying that woman is from like the fire, which brings us warmth, which brings us life, just like the sun, which gives us life as well. So we're going to give you a good close look up at this woman's traditional outfit to make sure you guys get a really good look. And if you were here, this hide has a really beautiful smell to it. It smells of smoked hide, and if you ever had that sensation, it's very beautiful. It gives a lot of healing when you smell that. So take a really good look at it.
And this one was created by Nita McAdam from Big River in Saskatchewan. And I am such a fan of their work. You can check them out at Waniska Beadwork on Facebook. This is like the belt. You can't really see, but it's so beautiful. I love how their family creates their florals and their beadwork. The wraparounds. So the next one that we'd like to show you is the men's grass.
So if you think about back in the day, you could kind of think about like, you know, these teepees set up in a nice area, and we would be kind of nomadic. We would move around with the buffalo, and we would move around different areas depending on weather. You know, we would move to different areas of the land, and that required us to travel, right? And part of that is it safe to travel? And we'd want to figure that out before we move the whole camp to another location. So what we would do is we send out our scouts. And these guys, the men's grass dancers, were a lot like our scouts. They would go out and find out if the trail that we're going to go on, is it safe? Are the buffalo moving that way? Are there any enemy tribes within the area? And so these grass dancers, you know, they don't call them just grass dancers because of, you know, grass movement, but because they could blend in so well with nature that you wouldn't be able to see them. So they'd be very stealthy when they go out and look where we're going. They would blend in with the earth. So it'd be really hard if you're an enemy tribe to see one of these scouts. And in fact, when different what do you call them, like Europeans, British, French, when they came in and they were fighting amongst each other, they would utilize a lot of indigenous scouts for every single war that was in Canada and United States. So they would use these scouts as part of, you know, showing them where the land is and how the land was and the terrain and everything like that. And so these are our grass dancers. And nowadays in a modern day powwow, we'll utilize grass dancers, you know, to go out and bless the powwow grounds, to go out and flatten the dance area before all the dancers go out there, kind of like they had that role back in the day when they were scouts. And a cool thing is, you know, they're really smooth dancers, and they're smooth like the grass. And one of the things that is taught with grass dancing that all the other categories take is whatever you do on one side, you'll do on the other side. So if I were to do a move like this in grass dancing, you know, they hold their arms up. And if I were to go 1, 2, 3, 4, I would make sure that I do the same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason why they would do that is for balance. They want to have balance in their life. They want to have that balance of energy. If you're working all day long, but you have a family at home, you want to make sure that you give the same amount of time and energy to your family as well to create that balance. And, you know, you do that with your health, you do that with your spirituality, with your emotion, you try to create balance. And that's where the medicine wheel comes into play, is to create that balance in your life. So what makes a grass dancer very unique is at a powwow, you won't see these dancers carrying a bustle. If you're at a grass dance lodge or a grass dance society, sometimes they'll wear a little bustle that resembles a chicken dance bustle, but more likely at a powwow, you're going to see that they're not going to wear a bustle. And so they're only one of the dancers, the men categories, that don't carry a bustle. And although there are different dance styles that are added to powwows once you travel around, these are the main categories that you would see at a powwow. And they carry these, they usually wear these nice, beautiful head roaches as well. And these are made out of porcupine hair. The long black hair that you see here is more made out of that porcupine hair. And the smaller hair right here is made from that deer tail, the white tail. And they would dye these different colors to get whatever color that matches.
Mm-hmm. The artist here is Coralie Nipus, and her mom makes really, really incredible beadwork too. And just from the last one that was more of like a floral piece. This is, you see like the geometrics in here, and I'm not sure what that interprets to, but beadwork is so dependent on family and the way they were taught and their tribes. So each one is always different. The next
category we're going to talk
sorry.
is the jingle dress dance.
Yeah. So the story with the women's jingle comes out of Thunder Bay, Ontario, in the Ojibwe tribe, and I encourage you all to watch the videos attached to the MEG website, because we got to visit elders and people, knowledge keepers from the community that the dance originates from. So for this, we got to sit down with Shelda Tom, and one of the best things about sitting down with each of these knowledge keepers and these elders was that the first thing that they said is, these stories do not belong to me, and we're only interpreting from the perspective of the knowledge keepers that we had, and we learned so much. Shelda Tom talked about Maggie White, the where the dance originated from, and how she was sick as a child, and how this dress was created for her to recover and for her health to come back up again. And generally they'll have 365 cones. If you ever get to go to a powwow and you get to watch the women's jingle, the sounds of all the jingles going together sounds a little bit like rain. And the significance behind the 365 cones is one for each day. And this is the contempt version. So contemporary, they'll have the feathers in their hair and on their hand. And an old style dancer is usually doesn't have the feathers or and they don't spin. Shelda was able to share with us that the reason that the feet always stay on the ground is because that's where the healing happens, is on the earth and our connection to the earth. And I'm so thankful that I was able to speak with Shelda about the healing dance and having that as a one of the staples in women's categories. It's so beautiful that not only are we protectors, but then we're also healing as well. And I was so thankful to be able to learn more about the jingle dress dance.
One thing that's pretty cool is Marrisa herself was the artist that created the beadwork here. And so you can see she's inspired by a lot of floral and kind of nature. And these are butterflies here. And if you looked at just one of this, it looks like a side view of a butterfly. But if you put these together, you can see that it's a full-on butterfly. And it's pretty cool how like, native artists could do that with their work and stuff like that. So she spent a lot of time doing the beadwork here and creating this for the women's jingle. So like Marrisa said, it's a healing dance. So we're at a powwow, a lot of times the announcer will be on the mic and you'll say, all right, we're going to get everybody out here on the powwow who's feeling ill, who's feeling some sort of way emotionally, spiritually, to come on out to the powwow. And they would come out to the middle of the powwow arbor. And what they would do is they get all the jingle dress dancers to surround them, and they would dance a song, and a sidestep song, and it's a healing song. And then all that energy of all the jingle dress dancers, to project that to all the people who need healing. And so that is performed many times at powwows now to get this healing dance. And everyone feels really good. They feel the energy when they're at the powwow. And so here's the women's jingle. Very beautiful, very elegant, and one of the more popular dances at a powwow. You're gonna see hundreds and hundreds of girls, of females dancing the women's jingle dress dance. And like in any event that you go to, there's things of entertainment. People want to be entertained. During halftime shows at a basketball game, they'll bring out some people that entertain the crowd. We have the same thing in powwow. These actually all the dances are very entertaining, but these are the ones they call the showstoppers. Showstoppers are the ones that move very fast. They dance the big beats and fast beats, and they stop, different stops, and they do different cool moves. For me, when I first saw it, it was a lot like breakdancing. It was a lot like figure skating. You know, when they do all these interpretive dances in figure skating, right? It was all about, you know, wowing the crowd. And one of these dances that we have in Powwow are called the men's fancy and the women's fancy. And so I'm going to show you guys the men's fancy here. And again, this is another outfit that Marrisa, you know, she spent years and years and years perfecting on how to make a men's fancy dance outfit. And the reason why she spent so many years learning how to create beautiful men's fancy dance outfits is because myself, I'm a fancy dancer, and she makes me all these beautiful outfits, but as well as my children. I have 3 boys, Ari, Leland, Deshane. They're all fancy dancers. So Marrisa, you know, it's awesome to have her in our lives because she creates the wonderful art in men's fancy dance. And so I fell in love with this dance the very first time I seen it. I know this dance very intimately because I've been doing it all my life. And every story I've heard about the men's fancy, it always comes back to the horse spirit. And if you think about the horse, you know, they run fast, they jump high, they're very agile creatures. And when they run, you can see their mane, their hair, you know, bouncing around with their gallops. And all these fringes on a men's fancy kind of still have that representation, you know, looks like that horse. You're moving around, you're fast, you're jumping all over. And this dance comes to us from the Oklahoma area. So I'd like to thank, you know, our brothers and sisters from Oklahoma that have passed this dance down to all tribes all over Canada now and United States. A lot of these dancers dance that. And what makes fancy dancing very unique is it's very fast. It's very fast, and they carry these whips around. And as a young kid, when I seen this dance, this is what really attracted me to this dance. I love the Ninja Turtles growing up, and there's a Ninja Turtle called Michelangelo, or Mikey, they call him nowadays, and he has nunchucks, and he dance around with these nunchucks, or he would fight around with these nunchucks, and he'd do all kinds of cool moves. Right? and dance around, and that was like, oh man, that's so cool, the way they use these sticks. And so I made myself my very first pair of dancing sticks when I was young. I lived by a lake, and I took my bike to the lake, and I grabbed all kinds of seagull feathers, and I found some sticks and strings on the ground, and I made myself a pair of dance sticks. And I took my uncle's bingo dabbers, and I'd bingo dab all these colors on here because I didn't know how they did it back then, but I made myself some sticks. So here's how the fancy dance would kind of look like. So they would dance around. And they would do all kinds of cartwheels and jump kicks and all kinds of stuff like that. It's really cool dance to see.
One of the most notable things about the men's fancy is these big giant bustles in the back. That's one of the sure ways you'll be able to recognize one at a powwow or in photos or wherever you might see this, is these bustles in the back. And these weigh, how much would you say?
Probably about, 10 pounds each, 10, 15 pounds each.
The men's fancy is like the athlete category because at almost every limb, their oxygen is like
getting depleted.
Yeah, so these are tied around their arms, and this is tied around their arm. And then you go down, and these things are tied around their legs, and this is tied around their legs, and then this is tied around their neck. And then you have these huge bustles in the back. So I really give all the props to men's fancy dancers and their athleticism and their strength. That's so incredible. Then
one more thing, these bustles too are made from 2 types of, I talked to the elementary kids and I made them guess what kind of feathers you think they're made out of. So these are made from a different bird, the big white feathers, and then these smaller feathers are made from a different bird, and they get colored and dyed, right? So can you guess what type of birds these are used? What type of birds we use to create these bustles, right? I know we use different types, but for these bustles in particular, this type of style, if you guessed a turkey and a rooster or chicken right down the neck, they have these feathers, then you're 100% correct. So these are where those feathers come from. Just so FYI, a little FYI for you.
The last female category that we have on exhibit here is the women's fancy. And the women's fancy was such a cool story to learn. We got to sit with Irene Oaks out of Niganit in Saskatchewan. It's really close to Maple Creek. And she shared her knowledge about women's fancy and some really incredible dancers that she looked up to, and how she got her start and how she started. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful story. So this dance here represents sort of like the first women's rights movement for women, because these women wanted to dance in the middle like the men, just as fast, just as quick. And they wanted to be in that space. And they were met with resistance, but eventually pushed through. And this is also like a dance of the dance of an athlete. Sorry. And yeah, one of the most notable things about the women's fancy is the shawl. And when this dance first started, it sort of looked like the women's trad. So this is what they would be wearing, and then it eventually evolved into this currently. So this is the most contempt version and very, very popular. And I have some really, really amazing, talented friends who are good at dancing this one, and it's such a joy to watch. Just to talk about some of the evolution, these are wraparound. So this is what they first looked like, and more contempt version is their two-piece now. So the moccasin and the legging are both separate. I've heard Howard Walker at a powwow once said that the ribbon on this shawl, when it touches the grass and the ground, that's our connection to the earth. And different communities, wherever we go, we get to learn different things, or different ways they're interpreted. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. This one is also, people say it's the graceful butterfly dance, or in the likeness of an eagle. So this one is one of my favorite to watch. The artist here, Emery, is an Indigenous social worker, I believe. And you can see a lot of the influence in her work. The mom and the baby in the cradle board, and then the home in the middle, but then also having the man carrying the cradle board, and such beautiful work.
So that's the women's fancy, and they dance really fast. You know, sometimes they'll get that really fast beat like that, and then sometimes they'll slow it down and have a nice little foot slide, right? So they're able to dance fast, but they're also able to dance very gracefully. And so very beautiful to watch the women's fancy. Marissa's been dancing this dance for a while as well. And so you'll see her at a powwow sometimes. She dances the women's fancy dance, shawl dance as well, and which is really nice. So take a good look at the women's fancy shawl. You know, they have their hair ties, the beadwork, the feathers, and, you know, the shawl that people say resemble, like Marrisa said, like a bird or a butterfly. The next dance I particularly really enjoy, and I think a lot of people in our area, especially Alberta, should know this dance, and they should know the origin of this dance. The reason is because it is embedded. It's from, the origins are from Alberta. They're from here in the Montana area, in southern Alberta area, and there's also origin stories of it coming from the Cree, right? The Cree also have their stories, and they have chicken dance societies. So this is from our area here, and it's a dance that originated before, you know, anybody came to Canada. It's what all these people, all these Indigenous people, they had this dance. But the chicken dance, this is what it's called, has a really cool story to it. One day there was a warrior, you know, a man in a family who wanted to feed his family, right? Just like any other dad would, you know, they want to feed their family. He went out with his bow and arrow to look for food to feed his family. And on his journey, he came upon some prairie chicken dancers, some prairie chickens, you know, in the field. And they were they were shaking their feathers and they had their chest up high and they were moving their feet like that. They're like doing a shake with their feet and they were moving around and they had their wings out and they were shaking their wings. And he pulled out his bow and arrow and he shot one of those prairie chickens, and he took that prairie chicken and he took it home, and then he fed his family, and they had a great meal that day, and it was awesome. When he went to bed that night, a spirit came to him in his dream, and it turned out it was that prairie chicken spirit in the form of a human. And that spirit said, "Hey, did you realize that you shot me during our ceremony? You took my life during a ceremony that we were doing." And then the man felt so bad because he didn't know that what he'd done during that ceremony, that he went and took that life of that prairie chicken. And the prairie chicken eventually kept coming into his dreams and telling him that this man needed to finish off this ceremony. And he taught him the songs, he taught him the dancing. And the man went on to tell his elders about what happened, the dreams that what that was going on. And the elders in his area said, "We're gonna have to carry on this song. We're gonna have to carry on these dances." And so they interpreted his dreams, and they dressed up like this, and it represented a mating ceremony, the mating ceremony that the prairie chicken goes through to attract the mate that they're gonna find love for the rest of their life. And so this dance is about love. That's agitin, to find that mate. And they would dance very, very beautifully, sticking out their chest, sticking out and moving in a graceful way, because they're trying to attract the mate. This side. Can I add to that? Oh. So one thing that's really cool about the chicken dancer is they had these different types of feathers on the top of the head, and these would actually dance around with the drum, and so they'd move around. Another part of a chicken dancer that makes them very unique is their chicken dance bustle. They'll wear these little tiny bustles, they're circle bustles, round bustles like that, and you'd find out who's a chicken dancer out there. Another thing is they kind of wear tight clothes underneath, so they wear tight shirts and tight pants just to show like that, kind of like they're like a chicken dancer is very, you could see that they resemble that prairie chicken very, very well when they're dancing.
Mm-hmm. The artist here is Morning Dove Kaitohat, and her husband is also a chicken dancer and has been making these for some time now. And we really admire the floral work here. One of the things that we always get compliments on when anyone walks in here is how cool these little eyepiece things are. Our roach maker for all of them is Yasti Perkins Killer from Montana, and that's another artist that we get so many compliments for his work in the roaches. Awesome.
So that's the 7 dances at a powwow that you would normally see. We wanted to tell you a little bit of the story of each one, but enough for you to get intrigued to go out and watch the full videos on each one, because they're about 40 minutes a piece for every single video to know that full story. And we just didn't have enough time to actually tell the full story of each dance in this presentation. But, you know, we have that where we sat down with the knowledge keepers, where we sat down with the elders to get that story in its entirety for you. And so I encourage you guys to, you know, connect with the museum to get those YouTube links so you can watch the full story of each dance. And, you know, with that, you know, that's the dances that you would see going to a powwow. Now you can go with your friends and you can be like, "Hey, I know that dance. Let me tell you a little bit about it." And so we're going to have a little seat here, and we're going to open it up for any questions and answers. And maybe we can start a dialogue here, and we'll start talking about powwows. I'll bring those chairs.
Mm-hmm.
So bring 2 chairs.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Patrick and Marrisa. I always love it when you do your tours, and when Patrick does his little miniature fancy dance. It's always fun to see the actual movements. Yeah, the demonstrations are great. For the attendees, please enter your comments and questions into the chat box. I will go through them. I see somebody's commented, and I'm excited to see the YouTube videos later on. Excellent, thank you. In the chat, I had mentioned, I typed in sort of go to the Red Deer Museum YouTube channel, and all of the 7 dance videos are there, as well as the video on the origins of Powwow. And we also have some other tours of pre-recorded tours of Patrick and Marrisa giving their tours. So it's all on our YouTube channel link. I've also included a donation link if you're engaged and enjoying what you see. So please check that out as well. And I have some questions for Patrick and Marrisa to get us started. Now, I mean, you have gone through so much depth about all the dance styles and everything, but I have a question about the powwow itself. I know powwows are open for everyone, and I understand there's intertribal dances, but can you explain to people a little bit about the powwow protocols that you would need to do to go to a powwow if you've never been to one before?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's always a little easier if you know somebody, you know, if you have a friend that might have already gone to powwows many times, that they would kind of take you under their wing. But if you're like brand new, you don't know anybody, and you would like to attend the powwow, I could give you kind of a run through on some protocols on how to actually attend it, right? So first of all, anyone is welcome. So you could just pack up your family or pack up yourself, and you could drive to a powwow, and people will welcome you. And so around a powwow, there's going to be a few things. There's going to be camping areas. So you got to wonder, are you going to camp at the powwow? Are you going to find a hotel? Are you there just for an hour? Are you there for a day? And you got to kind of plan that out in advance, because powwows usually go for 3 days. And so with a 3-day powwow, you want to plan your itinerary based on how long you're staying. The next thing is, you're going to find out that there's a camping area and there's a day parking area. So if you're there for the day, they're going to direct you to the day parking area. The next thing is, you could walk around and you could patronize all the indigenous entrepreneurs and artists. So you don't have to be there just for the dancing itself or the songs, but you could go around and you could buy some indigenous foods or fries and gravy off of indigenous entrepreneurs. And another cool thing is you could buy a lot of indigenous art and beadwork and things for yourself that you want to take home, you know, and you're really supporting indigenous artists and entrepreneurs. The next thing is, there's going to be a seating area around an arbor. And the seating area is welcome to anybody who wants to sit down and watch. And you're going to go through all the different categories, and they're all split up by age. And they're always going to start usually with the youngest categories in the beginning. So in the beginning, you got to think about, if you're there during the day and you're only there during the day, you're only going to watch the younger dancers who might be just learning, who might just be figuring out how to dance. And so all the adult categories are usually after supper, after 6 p.m., you know, they dance at 7 and up to midnight. And that's where you're going to get the real prime best dancing, because those dancers been dancing for years. Sometimes the teens are really amazing to watch, but they're just still grooming themselves as dancers. And then there's going to be grand entries where everybody celebrates everyone. All the dancers come out. It's a very colorful event to watch. Another thing that you could do, instead of just sitting down watching the dancing, is you could follow when the drums are singing and go stand around the drum and watch those drums up close, you know, singing the songs. And the cool thing is, if you have any questions, carry some stamao, some tobacco with you, and give it to the drums and ask them, hey, what was that song about? And they're going to give you some great knowledge. Or if you see an elder, give them tobacco and ask, hey, can you explain a little bit what's going on? I'm new around here. It's my first powwow. A lot of them will be open to talk to you and tell you about what's going on. And then just take part in intertribals, go dance around. And also there's specials that happen. Specials are a real cool part of a powwow, because it's a one-time event that happens at a powwow where they give these competitions at the spur of a moment kind of thing. And all these dancers will compete for prize money or for certain prizes, and it's really wonderful to see. And then that day repeats itself every day until at the end of the powwow they announce all the winners. And if you have a favorite dancer or favorite drum group, you could see if they won or not, and you would celebrate their wins with them.
And another cool thing is powwows are pretty common even in big cities. Red Deer's had one before, but there's some in Saskatoon a lot. Any major city, they usually host one. And those are just the same thing, you know, and sometimes there's an admission fee there, and you go and you can sit there all day and pretty well enjoy that.
Good. Excellent. It sounds like it's exciting and a lot of fun and a lot like a fair. And I'm glad, Patrick, that you also mentioned about offering the tobaccos to the elders and to the drummers for the Indigenous knowledge. Can you explain to us why it is important to have these protocols to offer elders tobacco and cloth in order to gain some of their teachings and knowledge?
Yeah, you know that tobacco actually represents the pipe. And so, you know, back in the day, before we did anything important, when we were sharing knowledge, when we were sitting down with other tribes, before anything happened, they would bring out this peace pipe. And this peace pipe was a respect thing between a person to a person or a person to tribes, right? Tribe to tribe. And so they would light up this peace pipe, they'd put that tobacco in there, and they would smoke it and pray for good energy before they shared knowledge, before they shared what it is that they were there to talk about. So even if it was about business, they say, let's not talk about business first. Let's smoke this peace pipe to make sure our energy is good, to make sure that the area is good, to make sure that we come from a good place. And so you're doing that same thing when you're giving tobacco, is representing of that pipe. You're saying, I want this good energy between us before I ask you what I'm going to ask you. And so they'll ask that, you could ask that question to that knowledge keeper or elder for information, for knowledge. And if they feel like they could give that knowledge to you or do what it is they're asking of you, they will accept that tobacco. If not, they will kindly direct you to someone who might be able to answer what it is that you're asking of them. So those are some of the protocols, some natural laws that we have with that. You want to add anything?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Thank you. It sounds like all the interactions are meant to be offered with the purest of intentions. Yeah, it's quite beautiful. Thank you. I do have a couple questions coming in now. So one of them is, what part of the videos, I think the 7 dance videos, do you like the most?
I really enjoyed
do we have technical sound problems here? Your sound is off, Patrick.
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now. Good.
Sitting there with every one of the knowledge keepers was awesome, because we did get to learn so much, and every time we were like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And that was probably one of our favorite parts of this whole thing. Tommy Christian has like the coolest voice ever, but he's also just he's so intelligent and just carries so much knowledge, and it's even in his voice, like it's incredible. I really enjoyed share every single one brought something so awesome that I really can't pick, but I'll just get a couple. Sharon in hers for the women's trad said your spirit enjoys dressing up, and I just totally believe that. Even when I feel like when I'm like what I'm wearing, I my energy is lifted, and I you know it like that. And then getting to sit down with Irene was really Michael Roberts ended up, he was able to tell us like some of these like really awesome like champs from before, and just hearing all those different names, it's so different from home, but just where it originated from and what that looked like was really neat to encounter.
Yeah, that's a great answer from Marrisa.
Excellent. Thank you. Another comment here is Tansy, thank you for the wonderful presentation. My 4-year-old boy Zane would like to know if the different colors on the regalia have specific meaning. He would also like to add that he misses going to powwows. Oh, awesome.
Oh, wow.
We miss it too, Zane.
Yeah. You know what? Just in my family in particular, when I was young, I my very first outfit was a purple fancy dance outfit, and it's an outfit the color scheme that I've connected with throughout my life, and I've used purple right through. And so naturally, my boys who are fancy dancers as well, they took on that same color, that same look. What's more important than the colors, a lot of times colors are passed down from family to family. But what's really more unique is the designs on the outfits, and those designs could be family designs. Those designs could tell stories of the family, of where they come from, but also of that culture itself. You'll find out that if you go down to Lakota country, that they have certain designs that are particular to Lakota people. If you go down to the Ojibwe people, they have their designs that are very unique to the Ojibwe people. And if you come down to Cree country, which you are right now, you're going to find out that you're going to see a lot of floral work and a lot of the same types of floral work within our culture here. And so more of the designs are what's passed on than the color schemes. And you're going to find more in contemporary times that people will choose their favorite colors, but they'll keep those designs kind of in line, the same type of designs.
Good. On that note, there's one comment below that says, just a comment from Kath, Marissa's earrings are spectacular. So I think on that, just to reiterate the beautiful designs and colors, and they are gorgeous. She's a very talented beaded artist, and you'll probably notice that I am also wearing earrings, strawberry earrings by Marrisa, the only part that anybody can see of me. So have to show off their talent. So yeah, so that's excellent. There's another question here. Oh, okay. Thank you for sharing your time and stories. Such a beautiful gift to those who have attended. What are your thoughts on using your videos in the classroom? I'll answer this first, Patrick and Marrisa. I'd like to say that we have been sharing these online webinars with the schools this week, and we have a few more next week. And I think the reason why we put them on the YouTube station is to absolutely share it and get it out there, so the more people that can see it and access this knowledge, the better. Do you have anything to add to that, Patrick?
Yeah, through the museum here, I think the other day we had 1,200 students or something like that live with us, and we took them through a virtual tour. Part of my role as well, I run me and my wife run a media company called Powwow Times, where we share Indigenous culture with the world. But our professional jobs that we have, our 9-to-5s, I'm a Indigenous education coordinator for the Chinook's Edge School Division, and Marrisa works in the Red Deer Aboriginal Dance Troupe as the wellness facilitator. And so we do our best to figure out how can we bring Indigenous knowledge to everybody. And part of that is using now technology. So, bringing these videos into classrooms and all that we could do during these times. So we got to be very creative. And so, definitely if you're part of an education board or whatever, contact the Red Deer Museum and see how we could maybe connect, and we'll figure something out to deliver this to your schools and your classrooms.
Excellent. Thank you. Absolutely. The next question is, where can we go to hear about future powwows? And I'm just going to start off by saying one of the things that one of the goals that we had with having this powwow exhibit with Patrick and Marrisa was to actually have a real live powwow. But unfortunately, with all these restrictions in place, we haven't been able to. We're still hoping that we can do that sometime this year, spring, most likely in the summer, that we can host a powwow outside of the museum in the summertime, maybe in August during Heritage Day. So we're working on it with Patrick and Marrisa. We're really excited. So that would be one place. We will advertise it and let you know, but I'll let them finish at answering the question where else you can see powwows.
I have this uncle who knows everything and knows, you could ask him any question, and his name is Uncle Google. Just kidding. The cool thing about Google is you can now Google powwows Alberta or powwows Saskatchewan, powwows Manitoba, and it's going to come up with a list of different powwows that are gathered, because nowadays people are posting their powwows on their Facebook pages, on their websites, and you're going to find upcoming powwows. Another resource is powwows.com. They have a calendar, a powwow calendar, and you can look up every province, every state, every year, and figure out when the upcoming powwows are coming. So they have a really good resource in where people like to post their upcoming powwows. And if you subscribe to any of the Facebook pages like powwows.com or Powwow Times, we consistently, all the time, we're posting powwow posters of upcoming powwows. And here's the thing, once you kind of realize a powwow trail, those powwows happen annually, usually around the same time. Like Musqueam, Samson in central Alberta here, they usually have their powwow in the second weekend of August. And so that happens yearly. And so you start to realize, you know, hey, there's a powwow coming up, and you just know by the time that powwow is coming up. And every powwow around this area, they usually have a powwow around that same weekend every single year. And then you start to know that's the time to powwow.
And it looks a little different right now just because of COVID and gathering and all that. But there are currently some online, some virtual powwows, and people upload their videos and you're able to watch dancers from all over. So I would definitely encourage you to check that out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was one of my questions as well, is, I mean, people can use Uncle Google. I like that title. But what are some of the best powwows in Canada, or at least Western Canada, that you would recommend if we went to Google and we go, okay, here's all these names, but which ones are the best ones that you like to attend each year?
Okay, my favorite ones. Okay, if you ever get to go to a powwow in the States, it's a totally different vibe. But even province to province, it's a different vibe. One in Alberta that I really like is Picani. They have these like tents, not tents, sorry. They have teepees, like, and there's so many, and it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful sight. Sutina is another one close by, just outside of Calgary there. That is a beautiful powwow, and the scenery is beautiful. I love Kiramios as well. Kiramios powwow is so cute, but the location, you're in the mountains and you look up and there's stars, and it's so beautiful. But I also love going to powwows in California.
Some of the world championship powwows, if you want to attend, that are within our area, are like Manitowabi powwow in Winnipeg, FSIN powwow in Saskatoon, and then probably the biggest powwows around this area, if you like the large crowds and you like the big names and the big drum group names, are like Marrisa said, Sutina and Samson powwow in Musqueam area. They have big, nice, beautiful powwows there. But if you like more like intimate, more relaxed, and scenery, Okanagan Valley and fresh fruits, you know, Kiramios, BC, very beautiful place.
I really like
it's a little
Six
small
Nations
powwow
as well.
Yeah, if you want to go east, there's a lot of different powwows that way as well. Beautiful powwows.
Great. Sounds like you could be busy all summer long if you wanted to be.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this next question is, this person is asking to spell. Could you please spell the word for Indigenous worldview for me? So I guess it's Indigenous worldview, perspective, or thinking. And tell me slowly, because I'll type it in the chats.
I'll tell you the word, and you might have to Google it, but it's Nihio Mamtenichigan e Bachita. And
I'm never going to be able to spell that.
So the way my mom teaches me Cree is she doesn't teach the writing part, because she said when we were young, we didn't learn to write our language. You know, it was spoken, it was oral. And so before you even get into the writing, you should learn how to say things first, because our grandparents weren't like, here's how you spell hello. They just said hello, and they wanted you to repeat after them. And this is called TPR, total physical response, where they're doing a physical movement and they would interpret that with words. And so the way I'm learning Cree right now is through that way. So I don't know how to write the words, but I'm learning how to say them and what they mean. And then what I'm finding is when I go to read words, I'm starting to understand what it's trying to say, because learning how to read Cree is so hard if you're gonna learn it that way, because those words are different pronunciations, different things, right? So Nihio Mamtinichigane Bachita, indigenous way of thinking, the think indigenous.
Well, thank you. And another question. Somebody's taken an Indigenous study class with the UA Arts, and she's wondering about your process of curating this exhibit. All of us in this class want to see the decolonization of exhibits. I wonder what driving principles you kept in the back of your minds as you made exhibit decisions. This is so beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there was quite a few.
Our biggest thing was authenticity, to make sure that what we were teaching was very authentic, and that it was coming from where that, when we were talking about a dance, we wanted to figure out, where did this dance originate, and who are the people do we know that are in that area. And the beautiful part of me and Marrisa, or Marrisa and I, is we traveled so many places during our Powwow trail that we've got to meet so many people. And with our kind of Native American culture, it's funny that all these cultures, they have this kinship about them, where they adopt you as family, and if you hang around an indigenous person enough, they're gonna call you nephew or niece or brother or sister. And so when we traveled, we went to every corner of North America pretty much, and we got to meet so much families, so many dancers, that when we decided that to deliver this exhibit, we knew the people who we had to talk to, and to double check. And just like you're writing a thesis for a university, right? You need those citations, you need those people that back up what you're saying. And so we made sure we had those people in place for us when we're telling these stories. Hey, this is who we learned it from this person from this area. And so to be very authentic in that. And I think Marrisa wants to add something.
Yeah, and we did everything that we knew from just growing up in our own cultures and what protocol looked like for us, and to meet with them. So we tried to do it the most genuine way possible, but also honoring the stories of me and my husband and our family and our upbringing. And part of this project for me was how Pat mentioned that both my parents went to residential school, that seeing anything that I create that's inspired by my home in a space like this, it was so beautiful and so healing, and but also like to encourages dreamers behind us, to whoever walks in the space, if you're an Indigenous youth or a person or artist or emerging artist, whatever, that you come in here and you can see yourself in this space, but then you take it further than that. You can see yourself in other spaces that Indigenous voices, where that's lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Hopefully
I think,
that answered that.
yes, I think that was an excellent answer. I liked how you started off, Patrick, by saying authenticity. And I think a couple reasons why it took us so long to get back to you is we were all sitting around behind the scenes, scratching our head going, this is going to be fantastic. But how do we do this in a really honorable, respectful, authentic way? And plus trying to juggle around a million other exhibits and trying to fit that into an exhibit schedule, which always seems really easy and is really difficult on the back end. So I'm sure Kim could speak on that. But yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge, was just the figuring out how to do this and how to do it well to make sure that it came across as authentic and respectful. So yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we appreciated the most is on the museum end, they let us be as creative as possible, and they give us so much room, and our artists to genuinely be themselves. And that is what creating space looks like. And we're just so thankful for the relationship that we have with the museum and the people who partnered with us.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it on our end too. It's been a great, fantastic journey. It's been awesome. There's one other question here in the chat, was asking about the hoop dance and how is that integrated in the powwows dances, or is it?
Yeah, so The hoop dance comes from the Pueblo people, and it's a real old dance in itself, and it's a ceremony in itself. So these dancers would use that dance for healing and doing different interpretations with those hoops. And so it became very popular in terms of shows, in terms of gigs. So these dancers would go out and they'd wow the crowds from, you know, showing them different shapes and different moves that they could do with the hoop dance. So it became very popular in terms of a dance itself, in terms of presentation, right? And so that's why a lot of non-Indigenous people know this dance, because it's so popular. It went all around, but it's not necessarily a part of a powwow. Powwow um, actually is dances from different lodges, right? So the hoop dance every once in a while will be a showcase at a powwow. Um, and this dance, the hoop dance, it just, because it's so popular, people, you know, associate that with powwow and things like that. But it's not a category that's a competition part of a powwow. But it is an old dance. It's a dance to be respected. And so sometimes they'll do showcases of hoop dances at a powwow, and people will donate to that dancer for bringing that dance to a powwow. Another thing is, at the Herd Museum in Arizona, they have a big hoop dance championship. So that's kind of what they have. And so all the best hoop dancers in the world will travel to Arizona, and they'll compete in the world championship hoop dance competition. And so if someone really loves hoop dancing, they could travel there and watch that. But there's not really a powwow trail for hoop dancers or anything like that. But they're a part of a lot of the big shows that are around. You know, if they did Canada 150 and they needed Indigenous people, you know, a lot of times you'll find hoop dancers at shows like that. And it's a very beautiful dance. A lot of our good friends dance hoop dance. If you guys know Notorious Cree, he's a TikTok superstar, and he is able to share Indigenous culture through TikTok. And he's a hoop dancer, and it's an awesome way to share culture.
Great, thank you. I think that's another great way to see dancers, and the powwow fitness and the powwow videos are awesome too. There's a comment here from Shelley. I've thoroughly enjoyed Ohcîwin at the Red Deer Museum, enjoyed the curator talks with Marrisa and Patrick, learned so much about the regalia and the dances. Thank you for bringing your ideas to life and teaching us about your culture.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
we agree. And one more question. What else? Other comments does awesome mean? Okay, this is one I'll just type in to the chat. I'm not sure, Edward, what else is awesome, what that question is. If you type in a little bit more specifically what you're looking for, I can answer it. But I do have one question. This is for myself because I just love the story. Can you tell everybody about how you acquire all the porcupine quills? The porcupine quills are used in the head roaches and also in the breastplate when you dye the porcupine quills. But I think it's a fun story to let people know sometimes of how you can acquire the porcupine quills.
Mm-hmm. Marrisa? You know, there are different ways. And some funny ways as well. You know, sometimes those porcupines, they're real cute creatures, and they move around the highways very slow, and sometimes they'll get hit. You know, unfortunately, they'll get hit. And I know, like, a lot of Indigenous people, they have a lot of uses for that porcupine. So they'll pick up that porcupine off the road, and they'll take the hair and the quills, and they'll drop tobacco down for that life of that porcupine. Another way is these hunters will go out, and they just gotta step on the porcupine's tail, and then they could pull out the hairs that
They throw
made.
like a towel or something, and then all of them come out.
Yeah, and so yeah, you could throw a towel on top of the porcupine, and then all those quills will stick to that towel, and then you could pick that up and take those quills, and they'll pull out the hair as well. Another way they do it is they'll grab the porcupine, and they'll turn it upside down so it stops fighting, and then they'll just take what they need from the porcupine. And the cool thing about the porcupine is their hair and everything grows back fairly quickly. So you don't have to, you know, go hunt for a porcupine to get the stuff that you need. Sometimes they will, you know, like in northern BC, porcupine is food that they eat, right? So they'll eat the porcupine, they'll go hunt for porcupines. So it just depends on kind of the area where you're from, on how they acquire those things.
Because they also don't use any of the hair. they just it's a more of a food source for them.
Yeah.
So it varies different places. But one time though, Pat and I were driving and we seen a bald porcupine. We're like, what is that? And we knew a native stopped there and met that porcupine and took all his hair.
I loved hearing about the stories about, especially about the roadkill, but I'm glad there's so many ingenious ways of getting the quills without having to hunt it. Another comment here, this is fabulous. I'm so grateful. I'll be talking up all of this with friends and family. Yes, it's too bad we're at the end of it, but once again, just to remind people about that it will be traveling to Wetaskiwin from May 22nd to September 11th.
Nice.
And there's another question, how or if does the hoop dance fit into Powwow? I think you already answered this again. I know you talked about the hoop dance in that competition in the States. So
yeah, that one, where does that one happen? In Santa?
At the Herd Museum.
The Herd Museum.
So if you look up the Herd Museum, you'd find out where that is. Yeah.
And it's cool because they do it like a powwow. Like they'll have like a little kids category and then like a teen category and then adults, and I think they go men and women. Yeah, so it's really neat. It's a really neat thing. Hopefully one day, yeah, we definitely want to go check it out one time.
Good. And I'm getting lots of thank yous in the chats. Thank you, Tansy, so very much for the beautiful, meaningful presentation. Our family enjoyed everything you shared and the knowledge. So I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you once again, Patrick and Marrisa. This was fantastic. I always enjoy it. I learn something new every time I listen to your talks and your tours. And we will share any other future powwows or any other educational things on our website. So just keep in touch. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
See you.
See you. Take care. Mwah.
See you.